Welcome all to our fourth webinar in the mainstream series supported by Butte Creek Foundation. We are excited to see all of you join us live, or maybe some of you are watching this recording. We hope that you are coming to this webinar after watching the last three webinars that we have done, and I will provide a summary of that. But if you haven't, pause, go back and watch those and come back. They're available in English as well as Hindi. So we've talked about the various aspects of mainstreaming, and we have a webinar particularly focused on, is the child ready for mainstreaming and how to choose a school for the child. In our first webinar, we talked about partnering with schools and how parents could build a partnership with their school teachers and administration. Then we talked about supports for children, where we talked about access to form and meaning. This was the one where we talked about the story of the fish Uchli. And then last month, we talked about individualized education programs. And we ended that webinar talking about, even though IEPs might not be law where you live, it is still a really nice blueprint, a really nice roadmap to help you identify what the learning needs are of the child and how we can create a learning plan. You've seen this image several times. We will be ready to have you download it in just a few days, along with a document that goes with it and understanding it. But as you've seen this, I've made the point multiple times that intervention needs of children who are deaf and hard of hearing change from birth to adulthood. And mainstreaming generally happens around the age of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? But there is a lot to be done and learned even after that. So far we've talked about language and literacy and academics. If you're interested in learning more about listening or auditory development, we have those webinars up on our YouTube channel, and you should check that out. Today, we are going to focus on social skills and self-advocacy. I see that somebody has raised their hand. I won't be taking questions live right now, but if you have a question, please type it in chat. So social skills and self-advocacy, that is our topic for today. And we will think about what is self-advocacy, how can children learn it? Do we think about self-advocacy as special treatment? What are social skills? What are the developmental milestones, and how can children learn it? So very simply, self-advocacy is advocating for oneself, making sure that you are getting what you need. And for children who are deaf and hard of hearing, this self-advocacy, and know that this is a topic that I could talk about for about a month, and I'm going to shorten it into 40 minutes. So I'm talking about this broadly. And typically for children who are deaf and hard of hearing, self-advocacy is related to what do I need to do to make sure that I can hear and see what is being presented? What do I need to make sure that I can understand what is being presented? And what can I do to be included in my group, in my community? How can I ensure maximum participation? I'll give you a minute to think about it, and then we'll go to the next page. All right, there's a lot of words here, so I'm just gonna give you a minute and please read, and then we'll talk about it. Okay, when you are done reading, type in chat, what do you think about this list? What are your thoughts or comments about it? Do you consider this special treatment? I want to know. One of the comments is it's equity. Equity here means the ability to, a way to ensure that we are giving everybody an opportunity to access the information. We are giving everybody a way to make sure that they can participate, even if it means we have to change a few things. So we're sitting in the front row. Special treatment is sitting so that you can see the teacher read the board clearly. Special treatment, right? It's just advocating for your right to be able to hear and see what everybody else is able to hear and see, right? If a child has auditory needs or visual needs, we want to make sure that we can get information to them. That is what access to form is. So all of these sentences, and I wrote them particularly the way I would expect a child to say it. Can you repeat what you said? Can you say it loudly or slowly or clearly? Please wear my FM system. I would like to sit in the front row so I can see and hear well. Please turn on the captions. All of these, when we follow through, when others follow through on all of these steps, we are making sure that children who are deaf and hard of hearing, adults who are deaf and hard of hearing, can hear and see well. Okay, so sometimes, like I have friends who are adults who wear cochlear implants or hearing aids, and sometimes I'll go to a restaurant with them, and before everybody sits down, we very quickly ask, where would you like to sit so that you can see and hear us clearly? Sometimes it's at the head of the table. Sometimes it's where there is enough light in the restaurant, so reading lips is easier if it gets noisy. And this is just access to form. Access to meaning, and again, I will bring your attention to our Uchli the fish. And it's not enough to hear, but you also have to understand. It's not enough to read the captions if you don't know what they mean. So access to meaning is advocating for understanding the meaning. And that can look like a student saying, what does this word mean? Again, this is a question that I hope all students ask if they don't understand something. Can you explain this again? Again, as a teacher, I hope that any student in my class who doesn't understand what something means will ask for information. Any student, irrespective of their hearing status, hearing level, who didn't hear me will ask me to repeat, right? All of us, when we talk on the phone, while many of us are considered those who have typical hearing, don't need hearing technology to hear, sometimes all of us say, oh, I didn't hear that. Can you say that again? Or when the network is bad and it's you're like, oh, I didn't hear you. Can you say that again? That is just a natural piece in conversation, in communication, access to form and meaning. So again, if anybody was thinking this is special treatment, it's not. We all do it. And when we do it, we don't think much about it. But when we have to have children advocate for this, it might feel like something extra. It might feel like the teacher has to do something extra or the parents have to do something extra. But advocating for access to meaning is more difficult because children don't know what they don't know. For example, I was talking to some other people, and one of the sentences was the farmers planted along the Nile River. This was a topic that we were learning in class. And there was a child who thought that along meant long farms. Makes sense, right? This was a child who didn't know that along means something different. So they don't know what they don't know. So as adults, I have to check for that information. And I have to say, what does that mean? What did you understand? If I'm giving a long set of directions, I have to say, okay, so you heard all of it. What will you do now? And when I'm saying I mean anybody working with the child. I as the parent, I as the professional who is specializing in hearing loss, I as the school teacher, I as the music teacher, I as the soccer coach, anyone. This is the responsibility of all the adults around the child. And again, they're not just going to know to do this. Some adults will have to teach other adults. Or even some simple questions like, can you tell me about this in your own words? Will be important. Okay, so I'm going to pause here for a second. If anybody wants to take notes, now is a good time. If anybody wants to make a comment, please do so in the chat. What is this making you think? I will wait another minute to see if any comments come in. It can be, oh, yes, I'm doing all of this, or, oh, this is good thinking. This is new. I hadn't considered it. Whatever it is, just give me a little feedback. There's a comment that says access to form, at least some people will take into consideration, but access to meaning isn't always considered. That's a fair comment. That is something we have to learn to advocate. Yeah, this is the work, knowing how much to reduce in terms of sentence length or complexity, especially when we are teaching children who are deaf and hard of hearing. Awesome. Okay. So that is the technical part of this, right? The form and meaning. But life isn't just about hearing and understanding. Life is about being social. Life is about being included. Life is about having friends. And thus, advocating for access to participation is probably one of the hardest things children will ever need to do. And I hope each one of us, as an adult in their life, will help them do that. So when we think about it, it's pretty simple, right? Humans are social animals. Children want to be included in groups. But there are some challenges and barriers to this, including difficulty understanding and following conversations. Listening to groups, listening in noise, listening to unfamiliar speakers is difficult. So sometimes people might say, oh, this is going to be a big group. This is going to be noisy. I don't want to do that. What are we as the adults in the children's lives going to do in this situation? Are we going to say, oh yeah, it's difficult for you, don't come to this. This is going to be very busy. Or are we, when we take them into this group, are we saying things like, never mind, I'll tell you later? I don't think anybody likes when they are left out of the conversation. Another challenge is assumptions by other group members. Okay, so people have ideas about what a deaf child is, can do, cannot do. One of the parents I work with said that there was a birthday party and the parent whose child was having a birthday party asked this family that I work with, "Oh, do you think it's okay to invite your child to my son's birthday party? Can he come to a birthday party?" And she was like, "Yes, why wouldn't he want to come?" So, with that in mind, I'm using that. And I was just like, why would you think a deaf child can't come to a birthday party? But there it is. That was an assumption. That was an assumption that somebody in the community had made. Teachers make assumption. Oh, should I ask the deaf student to answer the question in class? Is that okay, or am I making it difficult for them? Will everybody laugh? Will the student know what to do? That's an assumption. Are we helping them, or are we not helping them by never asking them to participate in the class community, in the class discussion? And then parents themselves sometimes have these assumptions. Ooh, school gathering. Can my deaf child participate and perform in the school gathering? Who knows? Right? We won't know until we try it. We won't know until we create a circumstance where children can participate. I'll give you two examples from my own personal life. Many of you know I have a younger sister who is deaf. When she was a little kid, like, I don't know, 6 years old, 5, 6 years old, um, she was the only kid with hearing loss in her class. She was mainstreamed at the time. And there was a poetry reading thing that was happening in their class. Her teacher asked my parents and said, "Would you like her to participate?" And my parents said, "Yes, of course, why not?" And they picked a poem that had words and speech sounds that were easy for my sister. They made a quick accommodation. It was still a great poem. They didn't change the poem or simplify the poem or anything like that. But that was something she got to participate in with everybody else in her class. There was no reason for her to exclude her from, you know, a stage performance. And that was thinking on the teacher's part, that was thinking on my parents' part, and so on. Same sister, fast forward 20 years, said to my mother, "I want to learn to drive." My mother was like, "Okay, we will figure out a way for you to learn to drive. Why do you want to learn to drive?" She said, "Because everybody does. Everybody my age knows how to drive. That's how they get to work. I mean, it's just what I need to do. My older sister drives. Why shouldn't I drive?" And like, years later, my mother has said, she's like, "I didn't think she would drive, but she said she wanted to. So who was I to stop her? I, as the parent, just needed to figure out how to help her to learn to drive." My sister drives. She takes my mother all over the places that she needs to go to. She goes to work. It's that, right? Like, how do we create access to participation? Sometimes it's specific skills, sometimes it's mindset. And that is the food for thought that I want you all to be thinking about. The foundation for self-advocacy, the foundation for this independence, the strong self-image, comes from the adults. Children are still developing. They are still understanding themselves. If we tell children, "Oh, no, you can't ever do that," any child, right? Not just a kid who has a hearing loss, any child, then that's what the child will believe. But if we say to them, "Why don't you try? I don't know if you can do it or not," but we won't know until you try. That is what makes the difference. Children will believe what the adults in their life tell them, show them, and make them feel. So, a question to all of you: what are we telling our children through our words, actions, and attitudes? And I'm adding the word attitude here because sometimes I see teachers and parents being impatient with children or saying, "Oh, you don't know this? Why? Why even say that?" There is no reason to say that, because then the child thinks, "Oh, Maybe I'm supposed to know this and I don't know this. What are we telling our children through our words, actions, and attitudes? And over the last several years, I have worked with children who are struggling in various areas for a variety of reasons. Children who are quote unquote delayed, children who are quote unquote behind, children who are, not the typical superstars. But superstars compared to who? Compared to whom, right? Every child has the potential to be a strong, independent, self confident, strong self image, having strong self image, and only then can they advocate for themselves. Children have to know that it is their right to be able to hear and see what others are hearing and seeing. It is their right to be able to understand what is happening around them. There is no reason that the world should pass them by. So, how do we get children to learn this? It starts by adults modeling advocacy. I've seen this done beautifully by so many parents. It's amazing. It's amazing. Back in the day when I was a classroom teacher and I had students in my class who had FM systems, and if we would go to a field trip or like a museum or where somebody was talking, it was beautiful to see parents and children walking up to the announcer or the speaker and saying, hey, please wear my FM, or can I stand next to you so I can hear you clearly? It's beautiful, right? These were 4 or 5 year olds who were seeing their parents say this. And when they became 14, 15-year-olds, they were doing it for themselves. But going from adults managing this to children managing this for themselves has a couple steps in between. Children see what adults are doing, then children get to do a little part of it, right? So it's a simple example of the FM system. The adult could say, hey, do you want to give your FM system to the speaker? And then, the child is only doing the act of handing it over, or handing over the battery for it to be changed in their hearing aid. But they are a part of it. Self-advocacy isn't happening just, on the outside. They are a part of it from the inside. Eventually, it's like, why don't you talk to the person? I'll be right here if you need any help. Children advocate for themselves with adults ready to help if needed. So it's that, confidence. Aage badho, hum tumhare saath hai, sort of. And then eventually, children advocate independently for form, meaning, as well as participation. But sometimes children and adults don't want to advocate, partly because it is tiring. How many times can you say, look at me, please let me stand here, can you turn the captions on? So it's our responsibility as allies and partners to create environments where children feel included, where it's not an afterthought, but we have thought about this ahead of time. Right? I mean, even the simple act of putting English and Hindi words on the same slide, even if I'm speaking in English, is the very simple act of saying some people might benefit from having the translation available. Let's just put it there. On Saturday, I will speak in English, and on Sunday, I will speak in Hindi. But English and Hindi will be available to anybody who needs it without having to ask for it. That's what allies and partners can do, create an environment where children where children are set up to succeed. They're doing a lot of hard work. If we can create an environment that is equitable for all, that is what we can add to this. That is our contribution. So I'm switching topics a little bit, but self-advocacy almost always happens in social situations. So we have to think about social skills. Again, I could talk about this for 2 months, but in the next 20 minutes, I just want to make a few points And here, I want to say that social skills is a combination of knowing the social rules within a community. Right? When I travel to India, the social rules of conversation are different than when I'm in the US. The language that we use for each social occasion, as well as the non-verbal communication. How closely are you going to stand to someone? Who are you going to make eye contact with? Are you going to put your hand on someone's shoulder? Are you going to hold hands in public? All of those things. Sometimes, we just use a catch-all phrase of manners. This person has good manners. This person is well mannered. This person has bad manners. And often the follow-up is they didn't learn good manners at home, right? So it's connected to it. It is understood that a person's social skills are influenced by their home environment, by what they are seeing. So very quickly, just a quick list of the various social occasions where social skills are different, where we need a specific set of social skills. Social skills and conversations with family at home is different than in the school, in the classroom, or outside of the classroom, just with friends on the playground or recess. They are different at a family event and festival. Sometimes as a kid, I used to go with my parents to a wedding, and there are so many people you don't know, and yet somebody saying, "Oh, so and so is your auntie. Say namaste." And you have to know to say namaste, or touch their feet, or whatever that is. Um, Social skills are different at a job interview. Social skills are different once you get the job and you are at your work and your workplace. And we know that when a person's social skills are not very strong, even if they are very smart, they're academically a good fit, if they don't fit socially, there is always a little bit of tension. You don't think of them as quote unquote fitting in, successful. Like there is some tension around people who don't have high quality social skills. Now, should we be accommodating of people who don't have high quality social skills? Absolutely. But is the human brain primed to expect certain social skills in certain places? Yes. Because when people don't use the right social skills, we make assumptions about them. We think they are rude. We think they are argumentative. We think they are too shy. We think they're afraid. We think all the things, right? We think they are less than. We think they're not capable. We think they're immature. So social skills really, really make a difference. It's not enough to learn to talk or learn to read and write if you can't use them and use them effectively socially. The development of social skills, very simply, happens through social models. Who are children seeing? Parents, family members, friends, media, right? TV, movies, social media. Kids are learning things on TikTok. And it's interesting what kids are picking up. But for kids who are deaf and hard of hearing, development of social skills also has to consider the understanding of language. Sometimes there is a surface level meaning. Oh, you arrived on time today. And sometimes there is a hidden meaning, which is like, oh, you are always late. How come you are punctual today? Or aa gaye, which is like, oh, you were so late and you are here now. So the surface level meaning, the hidden meaning, and the figurative language, which is proverbs and idioms and sometimes slang, is important. So how do we do all of this? As parents, as professionals, as anybody interested in the well-being of the child, we do this by helping them learn these skills by creating the need. If you give the child an opportunity to practice saying hello and thank you, then that will be an opportunity to learn these skills. It will be a meaningful opportunity because the child has a reason to say hello. A child has a reason to say thank you. You can't not take your children to a wedding and then hope that they develop the skills to say hello and thank you and namaste and, touch an adult's feet. It has to be meaningful, and there has to be an opportunity to practice. It really helps to practice ahead of time. Oh, you're going to a new place and we will see this auntie and that uncle. What can you say? You can say, hello, auntie. Hello, uncle. Practicing ahead of time gives children the confidence to do it rather than being put on the spot at that moment. We can always model self-advocacy and social skills. Right? We can be the ones saying, hello, auntie, hello, uncle. Oh, auntie, what did you say? Can you say that again? Right? And then most importantly, as children get older, it is important to let them tell us what works for them. Let them explore what works for them. Do they want captioning? Do they not want captioning? Is an FM system helping? Is it not helping? Does it help for you to signal to them what is happening, or are they going to interrupt and talk about it? Whatever that is, right? Social, self-advocacy, whatever domain that is, we want children to be independent, take responsibility, to make sure that they can participate fully and have access to everything around them. That is all I wanted to share today. I hope this has provided you some food for thought. I look forward to hearing what your questions or comments are about this. Again, I feel like this is quite surface level, but if this is a new idea to you, think about what is something you can do with your child in your practice, in your therapy sessions, in your classroom teaching, that help children develop self-advocacy and social skills. If you are thinking, okay, I actually knew this, why did I come to this webinar? Think, okay, what has worked for me? What hasn't worked for me? Am I able to do this for all children or only those that have good language skills? What about the children who are just starting out? How can I counsel parents better? There is always room for improvement. There is always room to be better at advocating, at developing social skills. So I hope that you got some information from this. We hope that you will share your takeaways with us, the change you want to make, and the change you want to make in the broader community. A lot of this sometimes has to do with public awareness and acceptance of others, of the needs, of the strengths, of the contributions of children who are deaf and hard of hearing. And I believe all of us here can contribute to that. Thank you so much for coming. I'm going to stop the recording now, and I will be happy to answer any questions that anyone has.